Gwen here from Olive and Oak, and I am so excited to show you November's Crafters Crate project. There's actually 2 projects in your box this month. One of them is this cute little reindeer sign that's got some snowflakes. We've got 2 different ways that we're going to add some embellishments to him. I really like this little bow, but we have another option too if bows are not your jam. But the fun part about this frame is it is one of our interchangeables. And so this is a frame that you can use for lots of our other small square projects. We are calling them our tiles now. We will have them for all the seasons, all the things. So this is one that you can use over and over and over again. And our second piece is going to be this fun little candle holder box. We're gonna make a raggy bow to sit on it, and of course we had to include a fun little candle that's gonna go into your project as well. So let's get into making this. I really hope you guys enjoy this project and have something to keep you busy during the holiday season.
All right, so let's unpack what is in our subscription box this month. The first thing you're probably gonna notice is this cube. We are gonna be turning this into a fun candle holder. Candles are so classic for Christmas, and I just thought this would be a fun project to put out. So you'll also find a little LED candle that you can sit on the top of here. Now, this one I've pulled it out. If you go to flick it on and it doesn't turn on, there is a little clear battery saver, I guess you would call it, that you'll just wanna pull out, turn on, and then these ones do have the little flicker so it looks like a real candle, and I am obsessed. They're just so cute. So that's going to go on there. You're also going to have a little reindeer sign that we're going to paint together, but the frame, I just wanted to make sure you know, the frame on this is one of our interchangeable frames. The actual little middle square sign we're not going to glue into place, and I'll show you that as we put it all together. You're not going to actually glue that part into place. So if you have any of our other square tile signs, you can pop that piece out and change it out and keep this little guy up all the time. And it's got a fun bead border on it. Inside your goodie bag, you're going to find a handful of different scrappy fabric pieces that we're going to use to embellish our project with. If you so choose, you don't have to, but that's how we're going to do it. Of course, you're going to find paintbrush, sponges. We've got our flat brush and our little teeny tiny guy as well. We've got sponges to paint with, which are great for any of your 3D pieces. Of course, we're going to have glue, paints. There's 6 paints and then a single that are all wrapped up in there. You're going to find some pieces of pipe cleaner, and these are what we're going to use to kind of assemble our bows. You're going to find a sprinkling of snowflakes, Arizona snowflakes, you know, the kind that don't ever melt because they're not real, that we can use to embellish different pieces on our project, as well as our little note card that just tells you where to find this tutorial. If you're watching it, you already found it. And it also has your promo code. As a club member, you do get 10% off any of other classes, projects, and that code is on there for you guys as well. But let's get into crafting our project. I really think this one's fun, and we're gonna be doing 2 different versions of it so you guys can kind of pick and choose what colors you really enjoy. All right, so up first, I'm gonna take the candle box and I am going to paint the entire outside of it. My original one I did in black. This one we're gonna do in white just to get a different kind of look for it. There are tons of different colors you can choose to use in there. You could go with a bright red, you could use your brown and do kind of a faux stain. But this part does take some time, so I'm gonna skip ahead. I painted all 4 sides of my candle box, and now I'm painting my top. I'm just being careful kind of painting around the gold part for the candle to sit into. It does wipe off if you get paint on it. It does wipe off pretty easily as well, so don't worry too much about it. And this is as close as it gets to snow falling where I live. Anyway, we are going to paint our little snowflakes for this one. I'm using silver and I'm using the sponge to dab the paint on there. Something to keep in mind when you're painting with metallics is it usually takes 2, sometimes even 3 coats to get a really solid color. So I've got these all base coated with 2, but the one on my left here only has a single coat on it, and you can see it's a little less shiny. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a second coat to it, and then we will start putting our snowflakes on our box. Okay, I lied. We're actually going to play around with the box a little bit before we attach our snowflakes. I am adding a little bit of silver to the edge of my piece, and then I'm going back in with some of the silver paint and flecking it. Now, I will tell you on the camera, you cannot see it. And it just kind of is what it is. But in person, it adds a little bit of shine to the outside of my project, and it just looks really cute. Now, on my black box, I did the white, and you can definitely see it like little snow, but it looks really cute in person, I promise. But let's go ahead and switch, and we are going to work on our bow piece first before we add the snowflakes. And I'm going to untie my fabric pieces here. You've got a couple different ones to choose from. You do not have to use all of them. There is plenty there to kind of mix and match the pieces that you want. There's, let's see, 4 different ones. Last one I went more with the darker colors. This one, we're gonna play with some of the bright. So I used one piece to wrap around and then 2 other ones to make my actual bow part. And I promise you we're gonna walk through the bow. It's not that scary. All right, this is the part we're gonna want to kind of pay attention to because we're gonna wrap our box with our fabric piece and get ready to add our bow to it. So I've decided I'm gonna use this piece for my wrap, and you can put it up high like this. You can put it in the center of your box, wherever you want it to sit. It's really up to you. But I'm gonna kind of measure out how much of this strip I actually need because you will have extra that you can use for bows or little embellishments. But I do want it to overlap a little bit, so I'm gonna snip some off of here. And then I'm gonna flip. Let's just make sure everything looks good. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this piece across right here, make sure it's kind of where I want it to sit at. And I'm gonna use the glue that's in our kit to assemble this. You could use hot glue if you prefer. I like to use what we have in the kit, just that way you guys can kind of see that it has everything you really need in it. So I'm gonna put a strip of glue right here along this edge. I'm probably about, I don't know, a pinky's width, not even a pinky's width, half of a pinky's width in from the edge, and putting just a little line of glue so that my fabric can sit right on top of it. And then I'm gonna kind of smooth it out. I want it just to kind of help hold on that corner because when we attach the bow to the front side of this, it's gonna have some weight on it, and having some extra hold right there is gonna be helpful. I'm gonna flip my box over. I'm gonna wrap this piece around, and it's gonna overlap there. Now I'm gonna glue the underside down first. Again, I'm gonna put some glue right here on the edge, and then I'm gonna put some at the end where this strip finishes out. Since I'm gluing the other piece on top of it, I wanna make sure this one's gonna stick down really well. So I'm gonna push this down over to that edge as well. Give it a second just to kind of dry, peel this extra. So I love shredding fabric. I think it's therapeutic, but sometimes the little stringies do get a little bit crazy. We're gonna take this piece. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put a strip of glue kind of where the end of it is. I'm gonna lay the fabric right over top of it, and I'm gonna push it down into the fabric. Some of the glue will even go all the way through the wood, which is awesome too. And when I kind of stroke it towards the outside, it makes it almost look seamless, which is awesome. All right, so we are gonna set this piece aside and we are going to switch to making our bow. Now this part, don't let it overwhelm you. It's not terrible, I promise. So I'm gonna use this polka dot one as my background bow because we're gonna make a layered bow. This one is gonna be my background piece, so I'm gonna start with it because it's gonna be a little bit bigger. Let's see, I'm kind of taking a guesstimate. I'd say this strip of fabric is probably going to be, I'd say probably about a foot long once I cut it. So I'm gonna snip it over here, maybe just a hair over. But if I were to guesstimate, I'd say about a foot long. And again, you can make this bigger, smaller. Teeny tiny bows are a little bit trickier, but they're doable. So I kind of found where my center was when I folded it in half, and I'm gonna take my fabric and I'm gonna wrap it around this way. So I've got my front side, all of it is facing down, and I wrap it around so that my front side is all facing down on the end. This part is gonna face up, and that's okay. But that part's gonna set right there. I'm gonna take this edge and I'm gonna wrap it the opposite direction. So this one went up, this side we're gonna go kind of flip it down. But no matter what, my print should be facing right now my table, except for the part that's in the loop. I know it looks more complicated than it is, but I'm gonna set that part there, and I've got this kind of figure 8 piece. So I'm gonna put the candy cane stripe on top of it. I'm going to kind of trim it. It's gonna be a little bit shorter, so I'd say if my big piece is 12 inches, this is probably closer to 9 or 10 inches. But we're gonna do basically the same exact thing. We're gonna make another figure 8 here. Again, my print is facing my table. Let me find my center point. I'm gonna wrap this around this way. So I have my one loop going up and one loop going down. It's kind of like making the memorial ribbon, but you don't leave tails on the end. You take just the edge to the center of your strip. And we're gonna use the pipe cleaner to actually assemble this whole thing together. I'm gonna tuck this piece here underneath my finger, kind of bringing the outside of that loop in and the outside of the loop in here. And then I would bundle them up together, but we're gonna try something. We're gonna put some little glue to kind of help hold that middle part there. Now when you're using real ribbon, especially wired ribbon, this is a lot less tricky, I feel, but the fabric just comes out super cute. So we're gonna put some little dots of glue just to kind of hold that center point together. And again, you could use hot glue to do this too, but I'm using what we've got in the kit. And I'm gonna set that part aside. I'm gonna do the same with this small piece. Put a little dot of glue right there. Scrunch this down. Oh, that should be underneath there. Hang on. Pull this piece back up. I don't usually use glue, so I'm trying to make it user-friendly. Okay, so let's put this dot here. Scrunch that piece down. Now I'll put a dot of glue. So I'm taking kind of the top of my loop and putting it to my middle. And the same on this one. The top of that loop is going to get put down to that middle point. So now I have these sort of X-shaped looking pieces, and that middle part, this is where we're going to scrunch. So all I'm doing is kind of gathering it between my finger and my thumb and pushing it down, so it kind of creates this little bow shape. And this is where the pipe cleaner is going to come in handy. It's going to go in the center there to help hold it in place. But first I'm going to do the same scrunching thing with this part. I'm just using my hands to kind of walk it together and mash it. And I know it doesn't look cute yet. Once we get it all attached and we're able to fluff it, it will look better. Don't stress. I'm going to put this over top of it. I'm going to kind of pull all my fabric forward. I'm going to take this and just like a twisty tie, I'm going to twist the back side of my pipe cleaner together. And now this is where we can kind of play with our not our tails, but our loops a little bit, pull them out, sort of make a big stacked bow, kind of tug the pieces around a little. Takes a little bit to play with it, but I promise you these little bows look so stinking cute, and they're meant to be a little bit messy, a little bit fluffy, so don't stress if it looks different. Now we're going to get ready to attach it to our box. Now I won't lie, this part is really hard to show just because of the angle we're at, but I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to put a little dot of glue in the center here to sort of help hold everything into place. And what I'm trying to do is shove the pipe cleaner underneath the fabric and get it to fit under there. Hang on a second. Get my finger in there. I'm not worried about the black piece coming off. I've just got to get it just right. There we go. I'm going to pull my pipe cleaner up underneath, and I'm going to twist it with the piece that's on top just to kind of hold them in place. And then I'm going to fold the pipe cleaner pieces behind my actual bow, just so they kind of get hidden in the back. And now that I've got it on here, I can kind of tug my bow to the side of where I want it to sit and fluff it up a little bit, pull all my little loops out. And that's as much as it takes to attach it on there. This part, remember, you can rewind it and watch it a gazillion times if you want to. Don't feel stressed out. But we're gonna get this guy all kind of fluffed up in here. Once it's attached to, it's pretty sturdy, so don't be afraid to kind of pull on the pieces if you want them to sit differently. Roll it up in there and tuck it just a little bit. There we go. And that is my little bow piece. Now in these open areas, I'm going to kind of put my snowflakes into place, figure out where exactly I want to glue them all. You can kind of set them down and get a feel for it before you actually attach them. But we're going to get this guy down, and I'm just going to use some glue along the back side here to stick them down. Keep in mind this glue does dry clear. It just takes a few minutes for the color to go away. So if you get a little too much glue, it's not a big deal. But remember, you don't have to use a ton of glue either. It doesn't take much to hold these pieces in place. So press this part down. I mean, if you really wanted to, I guess you could take a bow or a snowflake and put it in the middle of the bow. I think that'd be super cute too. But I'm going to do 2 snowflakes on each side of my whole candle box. All right, I'm going to speed this part up because I'm just gluing down these snowflakes. I'm making sure I put them kind of over the fabric piece too, just to see, sort of, I don't know, make everything look like it's fully incorporated and nothing looks out of place. So just putting 2 on each side. You can mix and match this however you like. All right, next we are going to bust in our actual sign. This part, if you've painted any of our projects before, is pretty straightforward. There's a couple of assembly points that I want to make, but we're going to paint this one a little different than I did in the picture just to show you some different ideas. So let's get this piece all open. Inside here, you're going to have your frame, the stand for the frame, and of course the actual insert sign. Got our paint colors pulled out. I'm going to pull these little pieces aside because this is going to be for the stand on the back side when we're all done. I'm going to get this kind of tucked over here. I'm going to pull out just the sign because we're going to start with that. And then the rest of that is going to be that interchangeable frame piece, but we'll set that aside for now. All right, let's get to our little mini sign. I'm going to move these pieces out of the way. You'll see that there's this little embellishment here that is not in the picture. It is a bell with a little greenery. In my original one, I used some scrap fabric to make a bow. I will show you how I did that, but on this one, I am gonna use the bell piece. For painting, I'm going to be using the flat brush, the little pointy brush, and sponges. And I'll show you a trick with the sponge. This is what I used earlier for my snowflakes. If I snip off this dried end, I can use the sponge again, and that's how we reduce and reuse a lot in the shop. But I'm going to get these pieces all sort of sorted out, open up my paint, and get to painting. I'm going to do a white background on this one. My other one I did a red one, so I want to go with a different color scheme here, and I'm just painting side to side on this one. Some of the paint does get down into the crack that makes it look like shiplap, and that's okay. I personally don't like it to be completely perfect with the shiplap. I feel like it looks, I don't know, not as authentic. So I like to get some of the paint down in there and not have it quite perfect. I'm gonna end up putting 2 coats on this one because I do want it to be pretty white because I'm gonna distress it afterwards, which maybe I don't need a second coat for it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So bear with me. All right, second coat is finished, so we'll set this guy aside now. All right, let's go ahead and switch. I'm gonna open up our silver and I'm gonna paint the snowflakes and the little bell piece. Just like I did earlier, we're gonna dab, dab, dab. 2 coats is probably my friend in this case, but we're gonna make sure we've got plenty of silver shininess on all the pretty pieces, so it kind of gives it a little bit of pop on there. But we'll get these all coated, and the bell will get a second coat as well. All right, now we're gonna switch to our little greenery piece. It's gonna layer on top of our bell. I'm using the exact same method. We are just sponging the green paint on there. We are gonna add a little bit of detail with it though, but let me get a good thick coat of the green paint first. Now I'm taking my silver and I'm just dusting along the very edges. It just creates a little bit of effect and looks really, really cute. Okay, we're gonna slow it down just a little bit. I'm gonna open my red because there's some little berries in the greenery part, but I'm gonna use the back side of my paintbrush to stamp like my little berry shape into place there. It's hard to see, but if you're looking at your piece, you'll notice there's like a little circle scored in there. And if you use just the back side of your brush, just to kind of tap down onto it. Let me get this one. I feel like I have to have a steady hand. Get these parts into here. But if I bring it up a little bit higher, you can sort of see where the little berries are, and they just make this perfect little circle that you don't have to fight with a whole lot. So that's all I need the red for right now. It is time to paint our little reindeer. And I'm going to use the brown to start him off. And I'm going to use my brush for that. I'm going to open the black. And we're going to use a little bit of black in with the brown. Use a little bit of white too. A little bit of black in with the brown to create a little bit more color than just a very flat brown guy. So what I'm doing is I'm tipping up just a tiny bit of black on the end of my brush with my brown. And if you look as I brush, there's kind of a difference in the color there, but I'm going to keep brushing it out. I'm not going to let it sit for too long. If you let it sit, then the dark sort of sets in on its own. But as long as you add some more wet paint right on top of it, it starts to, I don't know, kind of blend the color out. I feel anytime that I have a color that doesn't coat really well, or if I want it to have kind of detail, if you pick up a second color, and it doesn't always matter what color it is, if you pick up a little bit of a second color to blend in with it, it just gives it a really full look. I do that a lot with reds. For whatever reason, when I paint red in large areas, it seems to fight me a little bit. So if I take red with just a touch of either a different shade of red, a burgundy or a pink, it covers really well. So here's a little trick for you. Anytime paint's not covering nicely, get a little bit of another color in there, mix it in, and go for it. There's a couple that I recommend not doing. If you're not going for a pink look, don't use white with your red because it'll turn pink really, really fast. But we're going to coat all of these pieces here, get him all nice and base coated, and then we're going to add some fun little details to him. I promise none of these are hard or complicated to do, but you gotta get that base coat in there first. All right, we're going to try something. Oh, yay, it worked. Okay, now we're a little bit closer so you guys will be able to see the details that I'm working on. So I'm just going to finish his base coat real quick. All these little pieces. I'm getting up close to his little nose dot. I'm going to do a red nose on mine. If you didn't want to do that, you could totally switch it out, do a little black nose, or even mix some more of the black with the brown to get just a really, really dark brown for him too. All right, he is all nice and coated. I'm going to go ahead and grab that red for his nose. And I'm going to cheat. I switched to that little tiny black brush, but I'm going to use the back side of it again just to kind of dab the paint into his nose area and let that part dry. All right, now I'll switch back over to the pointy end of it, and I'm going to get just a tiny bit of white on my brush. And what I'm doing is kind of anywhere where there's a curve on him, I'm going to add this really thin little line. If you want to practice on the back side or you want to practice on a piece of paper, you totally can. My first thin lines were super, super wide, but one thing I will always remind you is that paint covers dry paint. You can always go back in, change things. It's never set in stone. If anybody's ever been in my shop before, the black used to be lime green wall to wall. It is mostly not lime green anymore. There's still a couple spots. But yeah, paint covers paint. So if you see anywhere that he's got like a really curvy line, I'm kind of creating this really thin, as thin as I can go, line throughout it. Now, let me come back over here. I rinsed this out. A couple of those are a little bit thicker than I want. So I'm going to add some more of this brown paint. I've got a little bit of water on the brush, and I'm just going kind of right on top of my white lines. And it's just softening them, so it's not a really, really harsh stripe. This is personal preference. If you like the stronger lines, you can leave them there. My first one, I didn't really do a lot with the brown. This one, I am. So it's really just personal preference and whatever style you like. I do have a little bit of water on my brush while I'm doing this, so the brown that's layering on it isn't a really, really strong brown line. It's just softening my white a little bit. Got that part there. I'm going to dry this just a little bit. Now I'm going to take some white and some of the brown. I'm just going to kind of mix it. I just want it to be a little bit lighter than the brown I actually used for his whole body. And I'm going to put some little kind of like polka dots on his back. I don't know, I always think the little fawns who have the cute little spots on their hind part are cute, so we're going to add some to this little guy. Now I'm going to come back in with the flat brush. I'm going to dry it out a little bit. There we go. I'm going to pick up some of the black, and I'm going to do his hooves in black. That flat brush is going to give you a really good line just to go right up to that little line on his hooves and paint them in. Again, he does not have to be perfect. It's okay if you go a little bit over the line or a little bit under. We're just going to coat right over top of it. I don't want to have too much paint on my brush. Put these parts here. There we go. There's your little hooves. Now I should let this dry longer, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to take just a hair of the white, and I'm going to go make little lines on his hooves, kind of like little shine points. That one was a little wider than I wanted it to. And you know how we're going to fix that? I'm going to switch. I'm going to add a little bit more black to my brush, and we're going to go right over top of it. And now we thinned out that line. Again, paint covers paint. And in this case, paint even covered wet paint. Usually I recommend letting it dry though. Now we would add his little bell, his little greenery piece, and he's pretty much ready to roll. We'll put him on his little sign background, his snowflakes around him, and he looks adorable. But I did want to show you guys how to make that little itty bitty bow if you wanted to put a tiny bow around his neck instead of the bell. I don't think he has enough room to put both pieces on there, so I would recommend one or the other. But what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our fabric, and we're going to want it even thinner than what it currently is. If we try to put this on him, we're going to cover his whole entire self. So I've got just this little teeny tiny piece of fabric. Let me see. I think this might still be too thick. Yeah, we're going to go even thinner. All right, hang on. Let's trim this down even thinner. Like I said, you need a very small piece of fabric. So I know you've got plenty there to play with to make your bow for your candle holder, plus this little guy. So I'm going to trim it down a little bit thinner. There we go. This should work. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold it like you would a memorial ribbon. Take that top loop like we did with the figure 8 bow, and I'm going to scrunch it in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that leftover fabric strip that I just cut off of there. I'm going to make my little memorial ribbon. I'll put a dab of glue in there to hold it in place. Hopefully this helps some people, because I know bows are hit or miss. Some people love them and some people are not a fan of having to make them. We're going to dab the tippy top of our memorial ribbon down so we kind of have this funny bow shape. But then we're going to use this leftover fabric, and long ways we're going to wrap it around this middle part. And that's going to be what's going to gather it up. Originally I was going to use a pipe cleaner for this, but I think the pipe cleaner might be a little too big. I'm going to snip off these excess edges, and this is where I would definitely use some glue to hold it in place to kind of snip or to glue those edges down, and then of course to actually attach to your little reindeer. Oh man, now I kind of like the, dang it. I really like that bow on there. Where else can I stick it? No, I said I was going to do the bell. We're doing the bell this time. Okay, bell it is. So let's get him all attached. I'm going to put glue. For this part, I'm mostly going to focus on the center of the bell piece because that's going to be what's going to actually sit on our reindeer. I'm going to put glue on the back of our greenery piece that's going to sit on top of the bell. So this part layers directly on top of the greenery that's attached to the top of the bell, which kind of helps create some stabilization for it. And now we're going to go in and add some glue to the back side of our deer so we can put him on our sign. Lay that part down. Make sure he's good and stuck down. I feel like it's missing something. All right, we're gonna try something real quick. I wasn't going to add more stuff to the background, but I feel like it just needs something. So I'm gonna take my brush and I'm using it long ways, and right at the points where there's supposed to be a shiplap line, I'm taking that brown and I'm just kind of flicking it in from the edges. And take some of it a little further in if there's longer lines. I will say this part's probably easier to do before you glue him down, but I decided it needed more. I'm going to take some of this black and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go kind of right over the points where I have those brown spots and just kind of add some definition and some detailed lines here. Bring some more in over on this side. And again, I'm using kind of the flat edge of my brush here, like skinny direction to do this part. But now on the edges here, I'm flicking my paintbrush inward. Now I have it flat. You can kind of see it in this angle better. I'm just kind of bringing a little bit of paint inward from the edges. I will say I have a little bit of water on my brush too, so it's not a really, really harsh line. Okay, I like that better. Now I can kind of put my snowflakes. Yes, I like this a little bit of distressing. Couldn't help myself. So I'm gonna put my snowflakes in place here, get them glued down, and then we will work on our frame. All right, so this part we are going to pull just the middle square piece. This is gonna be what's gonna hold our sign, our interchangeable piece in place. I've decided we're gonna go with kind of a distressed look. Now I'm on a roll. So I'm gonna go through with the brown paint and I'm using my sponge just to kind of coat it all, dabbing along the edges. And I'm gonna use a little bit of water on my brush to go over top of it. And what that's gonna do is almost create like a faux stain effect instead of it being a full solid. I'm gonna do the same with this. I'm gonna use my sponge along the outside edge, but because we're working on a bigger area, I'm just gonna do one side at a time before I go back in with the brush to kind of wet it down a little bit. You could use a baby wipe and do the same thing, dip the baby wipe into your paint and apply it that way for a faux stain look. So that's another option as well. But believe it or not, even though I have a 2-year-old, I don't have a baby wipe handy at the moment. So we're going with it this way. Now this is something that I don't mind using for this part because it's going to be covered in other pieces. If this were going to be a solid background where I didn't have as much covering it, I probably would find a different method of applying, like the baby wipe. But this is going to have stuff layered on it. It's going to hide a lot of the imperfections. Now I'm going to snip my sponge again, and I'm going to coat all of this part in white, and then we're going to play with this part. So let me get through this, coat it all in white, and then we're going to have some fun with distressing. I'm not getting this super, super perfect because we're going to layer a lot of distressing on it, so it doesn't have to have a perfectly white background to start off with, but you got to have something back there. Alrighty. Now it is time to play. All right, we're going to use brown and black again for our distressing part. I'm going to start with the brown. I have some water on my brush and some of the brown, and all I'm doing, and it's kind of hard to see until we really build some of it up, is along each little bead ball shape, I'm taking the brush and just flicking it in from the outside. If you look really close, you can kind of see. What I'm trying to do though is not make it super, super uniformed. Some have a little bit more, some have a little bit less. I'm going to go around the inside of the ribbing and do that side of it too. Some are heavier than others, some are lighter. All the way around. And now what I'm doing is the skinny point between two of them is every couple of them I'm going through and just flicking some paint onto that so it's got some different distress points on it. Go all the way around and do some of that. Now we're going to switch. We're going to make sure we got the black watered down a little bit, and we're going to go do the same thing. Covering more on here. The black's a little easier to see, but I'm kind of going back and forth on each side of my beading, bringing it some little distress points, but each time I'm trying to kind of flick from the outside to the inside. Go around. This is going to look really cute when it's done. It almost reminds, I don't want to say it reminds me of cow print, but almost. We may need to make a cow sign instead of a reindeer one. So I'm going to go really, really light with just a hair of black on my brush and go over top of all of that. And I'm pretty pleased with how that came out. Let me show you guys up close once I get it assembled, because in this shot you really cannot see it very well. So I'm going to go ahead and get all my pieces glued down. Now you can probably see why I left the middle part of the sign. I didn't worry about painting that. It's going to be covered by my actual sign all the time, so the frame piece. You can paint over it. It's not going to hurt anything. I get this all squared up and pressed down. Get my bead part on there. Get it glued into place, and then we will let this set for just a moment, but we'll flip it over. We'll put our stand on the back side, and then we'll be ready to officially reveal the full project. Get this all pressed down. Flip this over. Okay, so let's talk about the stand. Okay, the first part we're going to look for is this sort of rounded rectangle that has the 2 slots in it. We're going to put some glue on the back side of that. We're going to put it kind of centerish, but we're not pushing it down. It's just setting there. On these 2 little tabs that have the circles, I'm looking for the flat edge that's not the rounded edge, and I'm putting a bead of glue along the edge of that, and then we're going to feed the circles onto the tabs of this 2 pieces. And then we're going to pop those tabs down into the flat pieces of that rectangle, and we're going to push it to where this bottom part lines up with the bottom of our sign. We're going to do our best to kind of center it up, but it does not have to be perfect. I promise you. We use this back on a lot of signs, and it's one of my favorites. It looks like an easel. Now, of course, I didn't let the glue set yet. Let the glue set, and then you can switch it out and make it a sign. But our little piece just pops down into there, and when Christmas is over, you pop that guy out and you grab another square to put in. Are we ready for the official reveal? Here they are. Here's both versions of it. We did one very red, black, white, bold Christmas. This one I did way more distressed. Our little snowflake pieces, the distressed edges, and then this one I did more of the paint fleck that makes it look sort of like snow. But I hope you guys love this project. I think they're so fun.